I'm Michael Olin-Hitt, English professor, short story writer, novelist, editor, and for the past 18 years, Oracle. And I want to tell you about my latest book, The Messenger of the Holy, Guidance from a Spiritual Messenger on Living, Grieving, and Growing. The book is a combination of spiritual memoir and what we would know now as transcript of channeled material. The book follows my journey as I receive, struggle to understand, and finally learn to cultivate and share this experience I call the Oracle gift. That deserves a little explanation. I've come to realize that this experience has been among us since the dawn of human consciousness. Different cultures explain it in different ways. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, it's known as prophecy. In indigenous cultures, it's known as one of the many manifestations of the shamanic journey. In contemporary culture, it's known as deep trance channeling. In the ancient Greco-Roman world, it was known as the oracle. I've gravitated toward that descriptor. First, because I like digging into the ancient roots of spiritual awareness, just to get the guidance from centuries of experience. And also because the role of the oracle resonated with me. These are all the same experience. All these words describe the way a person will go into a deep trance and a spiritual messenger speaks through them. And there always seems to be an intermediary, a messenger, a guide, an entity, an angel. For some reason, that's just the way it works. We don't get direct access to the Creator. Well, in the Old Testament, Abraham and Moses, they get to talk to God directly. But for the rest of us, we have intermediaries. The guide who speaks through me has never given us a name, and people have asked. It says merely, we are of the holy, or we abide in the holy. It seems to be a group, which is another common element of this gift. So the messenger has said, where we are, names are not significant. And one time the messenger said, we are like fish made of water in the water. We don't know where we end and the rest of the holy begins, and yet we are. So we just call this guide the messenger of the holy. In this book, there is a narrative arc. There's a story. And it's a story of transformation and spiritual opening. The book begins in a very difficult time for me and my wife because we experienced the stillbirth of our second son, Jordan. And then the book ends with the adoption of our daughter from China. And in between are intermingled transcripts from oracle sessions that guide my wife and I through grief, but it guides other people through many other life struggles and struggles with awareness and human perception and sacred awareness. It's really quite stunning. So it's a combination of narrative and transcripts. I wrote this book out of a deep responsibility. I began to realize that if this book came to me, a writer, then I needed to write about it. So I wrote about it with the skills of a novelist. And with this book, I'm going very public. I've decided it's time. For 15 years, I've been sharing the Oracle gift with groups of people in what I call Oracle sessions. But in my academic community, I have not talked about this. In fact, I call the other books I've written about this experience my secret books. Among the world of university professors, mystical experiences are seen as a little suspect, perhaps even delusional. But finally, I think it's time. And I'm going very public with this. In a real sense, I'm coming out of the channeling closet. In a lot of ways, I think my book can be compared to Neale Donald Walsch's work, Conversations with God, but with a few key differences. First of all, Neale Donald Walsch did not experience full trance. He heard in his mind and wrote down, kind of in a strategy I would call semi-automatic handwriting. And I'm not belittling it because it's authentic material. And the Holy speaks to us in a variety of different ways. But there's a depth and complexity that comes through this trance experience that is astounding. Another difference is when Neil Donald Walsh began receiving his messages, he wasn't already a trained novelist. So I have the ability to write very smooth prose, and it's a good read. In some ways, I find that the material that I receive has a depth and complexity that is just astounding. And I think it takes the conversations of God to another level. That was a very important series at the time. It opened a lot of people's hearts and minds and spirits. But perhaps it's time for the next step. There are several things I think readers will find engaging in this book. First of all, it confirms that spiritual gifts are real, and the people that have them are not crazy. I think it's our birthright as human beings to have a very intimate relationship with the holy. And spiritual gifts, I think everybody has them. They just come in so many different forms. There are the dramatic gifts, like deep trance channeling and healing, and those are real gifts. But there's also people with a deep sensitivity and awareness to spiritual energy and spiritual presences. There are people who have visions, both in waking life and in dreaming. There are people who feel the energy of the sacred in them profoundly. There are people to whom nature speaks. I know people with all of these gifts, and they're very real, and they can be cultivated. And the messenger provides a lot of guidance to people on how to identify their spiritual awareness and how to cultivate it and develop it. The book also helps us realize the spiritual universe is dynamic, and in it there are angels and guides and messengers and companions that want to help us, that want to give us guidance and wisdom. They don't want to tell us what to do. There's always choice, but they're willing to walk alongside of us and help us through this difficult journey of being a human being. It also helps us realize there's life beyond this life, life between lives. I'm fortunate enough to get a glimpse into that spiritual realm, and it's for me become more real than the world I see with my physical senses. And so I like to share that perspective to people. The oracle transcripts are stunning. They're just with a depth and complexity that I've never seen before. It's very poetic, very metaphorical. It stuns me, and it happens to me. In fact, I think if somebody told me that they had this experience, I really might not believe it. I'm just being honest. But when you see the material, when you read those transcripts, there's just an authenticity to it. And to this day, I'm never surprised with what comes, but I'm always amazed. And it's always a different message. An oracle session can last up to 2 hours. It's just constant information, far beyond my awareness. And finally, it's a good story. It's a good story of transformation, of being open to spiritual awareness. It's a wild ride, but it's a good ride, and it's a beautiful experience, and I'm excited to share it. There's so much more I could tell you, so I'll make more of these videos. So visit me at michaelolin-hitt.com, and also pick up a copy of the book. It's a wild ride. It's a good read. Meanwhile, tune in for the next exciting episode of Michael, the Reluctant Oracle, Finally Surrendering. I said to the messenger in my spirit, all right, you got me. I'm in. Messenger of the Holy is available at Amazon.com and other bookstores. And you can visit me at michaelolin-hitt.com for video, blog, messenger transcripts. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter and all that jazz.